In rising to follow the Noble Lady Baroness Fox, I do want to reassure the Noble Lady that the World Health Organization has a very clear definition of well-being, and just to briefly quote from that, is a positive state experienced by individuals in society. Well-being encompasses quality of life and the ability of people and societies to contribute to the world with a sense of meaning and purpose. So this is not about self-focus, this is about how people are able to be in a position to contribute. And it's very clear that WHO goes on to say a society's well-being can be determined by the extent to which it is resilient, builds capacity for action, and is prepared to transcend challenges. So this is something that I think possibly most of us can agree is something that we need to do much better with in our society. And picking up on the points made by the Noble Lady Baroness Spielman, and I'm afraid I entirely disagree with the Noble Lady's contribution. If we look at the example of the Noble Lord O'Donnell commented that the Dutch score particularly highly with Denmark in those recent PISA figures on children's well-being, where we score astonishingly badly. I was just looking at a publication from a few years ago, The Dutch Way of Education. The publisher of that notes how we measure, this is the Dutch system, not only academic achievement, but also the well-being and involvement of students. Now, I can reassure the Noble Lord O'Donnell that I have raised the study he referred to a number of times, because I'm afraid I would like to raise it every time, but in the interests of the House progress I don't. But every time we are told how much progress our schools have made, because look at the exam results, I say look at the state of well-being of our pupils. And particularly to the Noble Lady Spielman, if we only measure the exam results, that's what we're going to judge our schools on, and that's what we've been doing, and that's what has got us into this position right now at this moment.
May I just point out that Ofsted, where I was Chief Inspector, took personal development, including children's wellbeing, very seriously and was one of the judgments there. I have never suggested, nor would ever suggest, that academic outcomes were the only thing that mattered for children.
Well, in responding to the Noble Lady, I can speak as a former school governor, and I do have my own opinions of Ofsted, and to put on the record, the Green Party wishes to abolish Ofsted. So that's where I'm coming from. However, what I one more thing just very briefly. I want to speak, because it's important that we do, in support of 502YG about allergies. I also went to an event with the Benedict Blythe Foundation where I learnt about this issue, and it is crucially important, and the work of that foundation absolutely needs to be acknowledged. I just want to put that on the record. However, what I really rose to speak to was two amendments in this group that have not yet actually been introduced. The first is 502B, in my name, kindly backed by the Noble Lord Farmer and the Noble Lady Baroness Willis. And I'm also going to speak to 502Y, in the name was tabled by the Noble Lady Baroness Willis and backed by Baroness Palmer and Baroness Boycott. And the Noble Lady Baroness Willis apologises greatly that she is unable to introduce her own amendment. Like I've just given up on. I did have a train to catch, which I've now given up on, but the Noble Lady did have to catch a train, so she has departed. Now, both of these amendments seek to focus on the importance of nature in the physical spaces in and around school buildings, and to promote active-based learning and teaching in the school curriculum. And I think it's really important to say that far too often this is seen as a nice-to-have, as an additional something that schools that have the resources to get money from parents to plant trees and to make nice gardens, etc. But it is a great pity that the Noble Lady Baroness Willis is not here, because this is something that the Noble Lady has literally written the book on. I'm sure many Noble Lords already know that the title of the Noble Lady's book is Good Nature, the New Science of How Nature Improves Our Health. Now, the two amendments, just to highlight the difference between them, my amendment, 502B, says that the Secretary of State has a duty to promote schools' access to nature, and says 1 hour of access to nature each week for every pupil. This is something there's bountiful evidence on. Now, the Noble Lady Baroness Willis Amendment is much more limited, but still very important, to conduct a review on the benefits of nature-based learning to children's health and well-being. Now, I have vast amounts of notes here, which Noble Lords will be pleased to know I am not going to read out. But I think it's really worth focusing on just one study that the Noble Lady Baroness Willis highlights, and this is from 2015 on 3,000 primary-age children in 4 schools in Barcelona. Now, these are very standard urban schools, and the test scores of children who were just looking out the window at green space were better than children that did not have just the view of green space. So we're not talking here about forest schools. These are normal inner city schools, and how the addition of trees and green infrastructure in the playground has real impact on the exam results. But more than that, there's also significant evidence about improvements in antisocial behaviour and levels of mental health, teenage anxiety, and even reduced truancy, something that Noble Lords, the government, are very concerned about. So the second part of the Noble Ladies Amendment, just very briefly, is about nature-based skills. And in other parts of the economy, when we've been looking at the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, we're focusing on the need to look after green spaces in our communities. Who's going to do the work of looking after that? It's crucial that we have the training. Now, I feel guilty that I'm not going to... The Noble Lady Baroness Willis has given me a great more information, but in the interests of time, I'm going to sit down now and urge Noble Lords to read the Noble Lady's book.